The world often turns on a single moment. In the quiet hours of an early morning, such a moment was brewing. The sun was yet to climb fully into the sky. Most of the city was still asleep. They were lost in dreams, unaware of the storm gathering in one man's heart. This man was Dinesh Murmu. He was not a king, he was not a leader of armies, he was an ordinary man. Yet he was about to do something extraordinary, something terrifying. His target was a symbol of power, a symbol of the system he felt had failed him. This target was an officer of the Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBI, an agency meant to uphold justice. But for Murmu, it represented something else. It represented a wall he could not seem to break through with words or with pleas. So he chose a different path, a path of direct action, a path that would send shockwaves, not just through his town, but across the nation. He prepared himself. His mind was a tempest of thoughts and unresolved pain. That morning, the storm within Dinesh Murmu was about to break, and the world would be forced to watch. Dinesh Murmu did not wake up one day and decide to attack a CBI officer. His anger was not a sudden fire. It was a slow burn, a resentment that had smoldered for years. It was a story that began much earlier. It was tied to a deep personal tragedy, the loss of his father. His father had died in custody. This is a wound that never truly heals, especially when questions linger, questions about how he died and why. Murmu believed his father was a victim of foul play. He sought answers. He sought justice. He turned to the authorities. He knocked on many doors. He believed the CBI held the key. The CBI was investigating the case, or so he hoped. But the wheels of justice, they often turn slowly, painfully slowly for those who wait. For Murmu, they seemed to have stopped turning altogether. He felt ignored. He felt unheard. His pleas, his demands for a thorough investigation, seemed to fall on deaf ears. Who was Dinesh Murmu before this act of desperation? He was a man from a tribal community, a community with a rich history, a community with deep connections to the land, and often a community that has faced its own share of struggles, marginalization, displacement, a fight to preserve their identity and their rights. These are not just abstract concepts. They are lived realities for many. Murmu grew up in this context. His worldview was shaped by these experiences. His understanding of justice, of power, was perhaps different. He was described by some as a simple man, perhaps quiet, perhaps unassuming, not someone you would expect to commit such a bold, violent act. But beneath the surface, there was a current of strong emotion, a deep loyalty to his family, a profound sense of duty towards his father's memory. These are qualities we often admire. The choice of weapon was not accidental. Dinesh Murmu could have chosen something else, something more modern, something more conventionally lethal in an urban setting. But he chose a bow and arrow. This choice speaks volumes. It is laden with symbolism. The bow and arrow are ancient tools. They connect to a primal past, to traditions of hunting, to traditions of self-defense. For tribal communities in India like Murmu's, they are also a symbol of their heritage, their identity, a link to their ancestors. By using a bow and arrow, Murmu was perhaps making a statement that went beyond his personal grievance. He was using a weapon that represented his roots, his people. It was a protest against a modern system that he felt had failed him, a system that seemed to have no place for his kind of justice. It was a symbolic rejection of the tools of the state, the guns, the legal jargon, the complex procedures. He chose a weapon that was simple, direct, and deeply personal. The early morning calm was shattered. Suddenly, violently. Dinesh Murmu had been waiting. He had chosen his moment carefully. CBI Deputy Superintendent of Police Pramod Kumar Manji was on his morning walk, unsuspecting, likely preoccupied with his own thoughts, the routine of a new day. Then, out of nowhere, the attack. An arrow sliced through the air. It found its mark. The officer was hit. Pain, shock, confusion. The ordinary morning turned into a scene of chaos, a scene of unbelievable violence. Murmu did not stop with one arrow. He loosed another. He was driven by a fierce determination, a culmination of years of pent-up anger and frustration. This was not a random act of violence. It was targeted. It was personal. The officer, though injured, was alive, but the message was delivered with brutal efficiency. The quiet street became a crime scene. People emerged from their homes, drawn by the commotion. They saw something they would never forget. A high-ranking police officer, injured by such an unconventional weapon. The immediate aftermath was a scramble. The news spread like wildfire, an attack on a CBI officer with a bow and arrow. It was almost unbelievable. The initial reaction was one of shock and condemnation. Violence against law enforcement officers is a serious matter. It undermines the rule of law. It creates fear. The officer, Pramod Kumar Manji, was rushed to hospital. His injuries were serious. The focus, rightly, was on his well-being and on apprehending the attacker. Dinesh Murmu was quickly taken into custody. The law had to take its course. But as the dust began to settle, other reactions emerged. There was, of course, widespread sympathy for the injured officer and support for the CBI. An attack on one of their own is an attack on the institution. What goes on in the mind of a man like Dinesh Murmu? A mind that drives him to such an extreme act. It is a complex labyrinth, full of dark corners and winding paths. We cannot know for sure, but we can try to understand the forces at play. His quest for justice for his father was clearly all-consuming. It became a fixation, an obsession that overshadowed everything else in his life. When the official channels seemed to fail him, his mind might have started to look for other solutions, drastic solutions. His psychological state was undoubtedly one of immense stress. Grief, anger, frustration, helplessness. These are powerful emotions. If left unaddressed, if allowed to fester, they can distort one's perception of reality. They can erode rational thought. He might have felt trapped, with no way out. The media plays a crucial role in shaping our understanding of such events. The Dinesh Murmu case was no exception. News channels flashed the headlines. Newspapers printed the story. Initially, the narrative was straightforward. An attack, an officer injured, an arrest made. The focus was on the crime. The sensational aspect of the weapon, the bow and arrow, made it even more newsworthy. It was a story that captured public attention immediately. It was dramatic. It was shocking. As more details emerged, the media narratives began to diversify. Some outlets focused on the law and order aspect, the need to condemn the violence, the bravery of the officer. Others delved deeper into Murmu's background, his long-standing grievance, the death of his father. This created a more nuanced public discourse. People started to see the complexities. It was not just a black and white issue. The attack by Dinesh Murmu was more than just a crime. It was a symptom of a deeper problem, a problem of trust. Trust in institutions, trust in the justice system. When this trust erodes, society becomes more fragile, more vulnerable to acts of desperation. The arrow loosed by Murmu was aimed at a CBI officer, but its impact resonated far beyond that single target. It struck at the heart of public confidence. It raised serious questions. Questions that we must confront. What leads an ordinary citizen to believe that violence is their only recourse? It is often a long history of perceived injustice, a feeling that the system is deaf to their cries, that it is biased, or corrupt, or simply too slow. These perceptions, whether fully accurate or not, have real consequences. They can breed cynicism, they can breed anger, and in extreme cases they can lead to acts like Murmu's. This is a challenge for any democracy. How to ensure that every citizen feels heard. How to ensure that justice is not just done, but is also seen to be done. The path forward requires more than just punishing the guilty. It requires reform. It requires a commitment to strengthening our institutions, making them more transparent, more accountable, more responsive to the needs of ordinary people, especially the most vulnerable. In India, the bow and arrow have a rich historical context. They are deeply embedded in our mythology and culture. From the epics of the Mahabharata and Ramayana, where archers like Arjuna and Rama became legends, to tribal communities who still use them for hunting and protection. The bow and arrow are more than just weapons. They are symbols of power, justice, and sometimes rebellion. In ancient cultures around the world, the bow and arrow held similar significance. In Egypt, they were tools of the pharaoh's army. In Greece, they were the weapons of heroes like Hercules. In Native American cultures, the bow and arrow were essential for hunting and warfare, but also held spiritual significance. Across Asia, from Japan's samurai to Mongolia's horse archers, the bow and arrow were symbols of mastery and discipline. Over time, the perception of the bow and arrow has evolved. In modern contexts, They are often seen as relics of a bygone era. Yet, they continue to hold a place in our collective imagination. They are reminders of a time when survival depended on skill and precision, when conflicts were fought at a distance yet required personal prowess. When Dinesh Murmu chose the bow and arrow, he tapped into this deep well of historical and cultural significance. It was not just an act of violence. It was a statement that echoed through time, a statement that drew on centuries of symbolism, and this adds another layer to our understanding of his actions. It forces us to consider not just the immediate act, but the deeper historical resonances it carries. As we reflect on Murmu's attack, we must also reflect on the meanings embedded in the tools he chose. The bow and arrow are more than just weapons. They are symbols of human history, symbols of our capacity for both conflict and ingenuity. And in Murmu's hands, they became symbols of a desperate cry for justice. To truly understand the actions of Dinesh Murmu, we must delve deeper into his psychological profile. What drives a man to such extremes? What mental state was he in when he took up the bow and arrow? Dinesh Murmu was not just any man. He was someone who felt deeply wronged, someone who believed that the system had failed him repeatedly. The sense of injustice he harbored was not born overnight. It was the result of years of perceived neglect and marginalization. Psychologists often speak of the tipping point, a moment when accumulated stress, anger, or despair pushes an individual over the edge. For Murmu, this tipping point was reached when he felt that his voice was being systematically silenced. The bow and arrow, in his hands, became more than just weapons. They were an outlet for his pent-up rage and frustration. But was Murmu's act purely driven by anger? Or were there deeper, perhaps even subconscious motivations at play? Mental health experts suggest that individuals like Murmu may suffer from underlying issues such as depression, anxiety, or even post-traumatic stress disorder. The trauma of feeling perpetually wronged can take a significant toll on one's mental health. Murmu's choice of weapon also offers insights into his psyche. The bow and arrow, with their historical and symbolic weight, suggest a longing for a time when justice was more personal, more direct. It was as if Murmu was reaching back into history, drawing strength from the legends of old, to make his voice heard in the present. In the days following the attack, many who knew Murmu described him as a quiet, introspective man. A man who rarely showed his emotions, but when he did, it was with an intensity that was hard to ignore. This duality of being both reserved and intensely passionate is often seen in individuals who harbor deep-seated grievances. As we piece together the psychological profile of Dinesh Murmu, we are reminded that human actions are rarely black and white. They are shaped by a complex interplay of emotions, experiences, and mental states. Murmu's act was a tragic culmination of his inner turmoil, a desperate cry for recognition and justice. Understanding Murmu's psychological landscape helps us see the broader picture. It compels us to look beyond the act itself and consider the man behind it, a man who, in his own way, was seeking a sense of justice, a sense of being heard. As we move forward, it's crucial to address not just the immediate consequences of such actions, but also the underlying issues that drive individuals to such extremes. Only then can we hope to prevent future tragedies and build a society where every voice is heard, every grievance addressed, and every individual feels valued. The attack by Dinesh Murmu sent shockwaves through the local community. The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of emotions, fear, anger, confusion, and sorrow. People found themselves grappling with the reality that someone they knew, someone from their own community, had committed such a violent act. The emotional impact was profound. Families huddled together, trying to make sense of the tragedy. Parents held their children a little tighter, worried about the safety of their loved ones. Conversations at tea stalls and markets were dominated by the event, with everyone trying to piece together what had happened and why. Socially, the community faced a period of introspection. Trust, which had been a cornerstone of their tight-knit society, was suddenly in question. Neighbors who had once greeted each other with open hearts now looked on with a hint of suspicion. The bonds that had held the community together were strained, and it would take time and effort to rebuild them. The economic impact was also significant. Local businesses saw a decline in customers as people were hesitant to leave their homes. Schools reported lower attendance, with parents opting to keep their children at home until they felt it was safe. The ripple effects of the attack were felt in every corner of the community, from the bustling markets to the quiet lanes. In the long term, the community had to come to terms with the deeper issues that the attack had brought to the surface. There were discussions about mental health, the pressures faced by marginalized groups, and the need for better support systems. Workshops and counseling sessions were organized, aiming to heal the collective trauma and foster a sense of unity. Community leaders played a crucial role in guiding the recovery process. They urged people to come together, to support one another, and to work towards a future where such incidents would never happen again. Religious and cultural gatherings became platforms for healing, where people could share their feelings and find solace in their shared experiences. The attack also prompted a reevaluation of the relationship between the community and the authorities. There were calls for more transparent and effective communication, for systems that would ensure that grievances were addressed before they reached a tipping point. The community's resilience was tested, but it also showed their capacity for empathy, understanding, and collective action. As the days turned into weeks and months, the initial shock began to fade, but the lessons learned remained. The community emerged stronger, more aware of the challenges they faced, and more committed to building a society where every individual felt valued and heard. The impact of the attack by Dinesh Murmu was profound and multifaceted. It was a stark reminder of the deep-seated issues that can drive individuals to extreme actions, but it was also a testament to the strength and resilience of the human spirit. In the face of adversity, the community came together, determined to heal, to grow, and to build a better future for themselves and their children. In the wake of the attack by Dinesh Murmu, law enforcement agencies were thrust into the spotlight. The immediate response was one of urgency, as officers raced to secure the area and ensure the safety of the public. The scene was chaotic, with sirens blaring and a heavy police presence. The priority was clear: to prevent any further harm and to apprehend the perpetrator. The strategies employed by the police were multifaceted. Roadblocks were set up to control the movement of people and vehicles, and a perimeter was established around the site of the attack. Special units were deployed to conduct a thorough search of the area, looking for any potential threats or accomplices. The police worked closely with emergency medical services to provide immediate care to the injured, ensuring that they received the attention they needed. However, the response was not without its challenges. The suddenness of the attack meant that the police had little time to prepare. The sheer scale of the incident tested their resources and coordination. There were reports of communication breakdowns and delays in the deployment of additional personnel. The police also faced the difficult task of managing public fear and anger, as emotions ran high in the aftermath of the attack. Despite these challenges, the effectiveness of the law enforcement response was evident. Within hours, Dinesh Murmu was apprehended, and the situation was brought under control. The police conducted a swift and thorough investigation, gathering evidence and interviewing witnesses. Their efforts were instrumental in piecing together the events leading up to the attack and in understanding Murmu's motives. The response of law enforcement agencies also highlighted the importance of community cooperation. Residents provided crucial information that aided the investigation, and local leaders worked with the police to maintain calm and order. The collaboration between the police and the community was a key factor in the successful resolution of the situation. In the days following the attack, law enforcement agencies continued to play a vital role. They increased patrols in the area to reassure the public and to deter any potential copycat incidents. They also engaged in community outreach, holding meetings to address concerns and to provide updates on the investigation. The police's proactive approach helped to restore a sense of security and trust within the community. The attack by Dinesh Murmu was a stark reminder of the challenges faced by law enforcement agencies in responding to sudden and violent incidents. It underscored the need for preparedness, effective communication, and community engagement. While there were areas for improvement, the overall response demonstrated the dedication and resilience of the police force. As the investigation continued, law enforcement agencies remained committed to uncovering the full story behind the attack. Their efforts were not just about bringing Murmu to justice, but also about learning from the incident and improving their strategies for the future. The response to the attack was a testament to the critical role that law enforcement plays in maintaining public safety and in supporting communities in times of crisis. The media's coverage of the attack by Dinesh Murmu was swift and pervasive, capturing the attention of the entire nation. News channels, online platforms, and social media were abuzz with reports and updates, each trying to provide the latest information. The incident dominated headlines, and the narratives that emerged were varied and complex. The initial media narrative focused heavily on the chaos and fear generated by the attack. Dramatic footage of the scene, eyewitness accounts, and expert analyses were broadcast repeatedly, amplifying the sense of urgency and danger. This initial coverage shaped public perception, creating an atmosphere of anxiety and concern. As more details about Dinesh Murmu and his motives came to light, the media began to delve deeper into his background. Reports highlighted his grievances, personal history, and possible psychological issues. The portrayal of Murmu was multifaceted. Some narratives depicted him as a troubled individual driven to a desperate act, while others framed him as a dangerous criminal who posed a significant threat to society. Public perception was heavily influenced by these narratives. Social media platforms became a battleground of opinions, with people expressing a wide range of emotions, from sympathy and understanding to anger and fear. Hashtags related to the incident trended for days, reflecting the intense public interest and debate. The media also played a crucial role in disseminating information about the law enforcement response. Reports praised the police for their swift action and highlighted the challenges they faced in managing the situation. Interviews with officials and experts provided insights into the strategies employed and the efforts to restore order and security. However, the media's role was not without controversy. Some criticized the sensationalism and the potential for spreading misinformation. There were concerns about the impact of graphic images and distressing content on viewers, particularly children and vulnerable individuals. The balance between informing the public and respecting the sensitivity of the situation was a delicate one. In the days following the attack, the focus of media coverage shifted towards the broader implications of the incident. Discussions on news panels and opinion pieces explored themes of mental health, community safety, and the responsibilities of law enforcement. The coverage prompted a national conversation about these critical issues, encouraging reflection and dialogue. Public perception continued to evolve as new information emerged and as the media provided updates on the ongoing investigation. The role of the media in shaping this perception was undeniable. Through their coverage, they influenced how the public understood the incident, the individuals involved, and the broader societal context. The media's coverage of the attack by Dinesh Murmu was a testament to the power of information in shaping public discourse. While it brought attention to important issues and provided a platform for diverse voices, it also highlighted the need for responsible journalism. The way the story was told had a profound impact on public perception, underscoring the media's role in times of crisis. The legal proceedings that followed the attack by Dinesh Murmu were closely watched by the nation. The charges brought against him were severe, reflecting the gravity of his actions. Murmu faced multiple counts, including attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and creating public disorder. The legal system moved swiftly to address the case, given its high-profile nature and the public outcry for justice. The trial itself was a complex and emotionally charged affair. The prosecution presented a wealth of evidence, including eyewitness testimonies, forensic reports, and video footage of the incident. They painted a picture of a calculated act of violence, driven by Murmu's deep-seated grievances and psychological turmoil. Murmu's defense team, on the other hand, argued for a more nuanced understanding of his actions. They highlighted his troubled past, mental health issues, and the systemic failures that may have contributed to his desperate state. Expert witnesses in psychology and sociology were brought in to provide insights into Murmu's mindset and the societal pressures he faced. The courtroom was a battleground for competing narratives, one of justice and retribution and the other of understanding and rehabilitation. The trial captured the nation's attention, with daily updates and analyses dominating the news cycle. Social media buzzed with opinions, arguments, and debates, reflecting the public's investment in the outcome. After weeks of intense deliberation, the verdict was finally delivered. Dinesh Murmu was found guilty on all counts. The judge, in his sentencing, acknowledged the complexity of Murmu's situation, but emphasized the need for accountability and the rule of law. Murmu received a lengthy prison sentence, with provisions for mental health treatment. The conclusion of the trial marked a significant moment in the journey towards justice. It was a moment of closure for many, but also a reminder of the deeper issues that remained unresolved. The legal proceedings had not only sought to address the crime, but had also sparked a broader conversation about mental health, societal pressures, and the responsibilities of the state. In the aftermath of the verdict, the focus shifted towards healing and reflection. The community, still reeling from the shock of the attack, began to process the events and their implications. The legal system's response was seen as a critical step in restoring order and trust, but it also highlighted the need for continued dialogue and action on the underlying issues. The legal proceedings and the quest for justice in the case of Dinesh Murmu were a testament to the complexities of the human condition and the societal structures we navigate. It was a story of law and order, but also one of compassion and understanding. The journey towards justice was far from simple, but it was a necessary path towards healing and progress. In the digital age, social media played an indispensable role in shaping the narrative around Dinesh Murmu's attack. From the moment news of the incident broke, platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram were flooded with updates, opinions, and debates. The immediacy and reach of social media meant that information and misinformation spread like wildfire. Public opinion was swiftly formed and polarized. Hashtags related to the incident trended for days, with users expressing a wide range of emotions from outrage and sympathy to calls for justice and demands for systemic change. The discussions online were not limited to the specifics of the case. They expanded to broader issues such as mental health, societal pressures, and the effectiveness of the legal system. Social media influencers and celebrities also weighed in, using their platforms to amplify certain narratives and call for action. Some advocated for a deeper understanding of Murmu's psychological state, while others focused on the need for stringent law enforcement and justice for the victims. The discourse was dynamic and often heated, reflecting the complexities of the situation. The visual nature of social media also played a significant role. Short video clips, infographics, and memes circulated widely, each contributing to the collective understanding or misunderstanding of the incident. Eyewitnesses and bystanders shared their accounts, adding layers of personal testimony that shaped public perception. However, the rapid dissemination of information also had its downsides. Misinformation and speculation were rampant, sometimes leading to public hysteria and confusion. The challenge of verifying facts in real time became apparent, as did the impact of echo chambers where users were exposed primarily to viewpoints that reinforced their existing beliefs. Law enforcement and media outlets had to navigate this fast-paced digital landscape carefully. Official statements and updates were quickly issued to counteract false narratives and provide accurate information. The role of responsible journalism became more crucial than ever, as traditional media sought to balance speed with accuracy. The case of Dinesh Murmu highlighted the dual-edged sword of social media. On one hand, it empowered citizens to engage in meaningful discussions and hold institutions accountable. On the other hand, it underscored the dangers of misinformation and the complexities of public opinion in the digital age. As the legal proceedings unfolded, social media continued to be a battleground of ideas and emotions. The public's engagement on these platforms reflected a society deeply invested in the outcome and the broader implications of the case. The digital dialogue was a testament to the power of social media in shaping contemporary narratives and influencing real-world events. In the end, the role of social media in the case of Dinesh Murmu was a microcosm of its impact on modern society. It was a tool for both enlightenment and division, a platform for both justice and chaos. The lessons learned from this digital discourse will undoubtedly inform how future incidents are perceived and addressed in our interconnected world. The incident involving Dinesh Murmu has left an indelible mark on society, serving as a stark reminder of the complexities of human behavior and the societal structures that influence it. As we reflect on the events, several key lessons emerge that can guide us towards a safer and more understanding future. First and foremost, the importance of mental health cannot be overstated. Dinesh Murmu's actions were a cry for help, a manifestation of deep-seated psychological issues that were left unaddressed. This underscores the urgent need for accessible mental health services and the destigmatization of seeking help. Schools, workplaces, and communities must prioritize mental well-being, offering support systems that can identify and assist individuals in distress before they reach a breaking point. Education also plays a crucial role. By fostering a culture of empathy and understanding from a young age, we can create a society that is more attuned to the struggles of its members. Educational institutions should incorporate mental health awareness into their curricula, teaching students to recognize signs of distress in themselves and others, and to seek help without fear of judgment. Law enforcement and emergency response protocols must also be re-evaluated. The swift and effective handling of such incidents can prevent escalation and mitigate harm. Training programs that equip law enforcement officers with the skills to de-escalate situations involving individuals with mental health issues are essential. Furthermore, collaboration between law enforcement and mental health professionals can lead to more informed and compassionate responses. The role of social media, as discussed, is a double-edged sword. While it has the power to mobilize and inform, it can also spread misinformation and incite panic. Responsible use of social media, both by individuals and institutions, is crucial. Fact-checking, critical thinking, and digital literacy should be promoted to ensure that the information disseminated is accurate and constructive. Community engagement and support structures are equally important. Local communities must come together to create environments where individuals feel connected and supported. Initiatives such as community outreach programs, support groups, and public awareness campaigns can foster a sense of belonging and reduce feelings of isolation. Lastly, the legal and judicial systems must ensure that justice is both swift and fair. Legal proceedings should be transparent, and the rights of all parties involved must be upheld. Additionally, there should be provisions for rehabilitation and reintegration, offering second chances to those who have acted out of desperation and mental anguish. In conclusion, the case of Dinesh Murmu is a complex tapestry of individual actions and societal influences. By learning from this incident, we can implement measures that not only prevent similar occurrences, but also create a more compassionate and resilient society. The path forward requires a collective effort, with every sector of society playing its part in fostering understanding, support, and justice.